I'm going to play for you a video clip of what Michael Wolff said Epstein told him was in the safe and what he showed the author was in this safe. Okay, so that's great. So wouldn't it be great if FBI subpoenaed the estate of Jeffrey Epstein for all that information?
The estate is under no obligation to provide that material, even pursuant to a subpoena. That's a great point.
Yeah, that's just false.
Okay.
That's just false. You're the frickin' FBI. You can subpoena the information from the estate, and you better do that.
Kash Patel came into the hearing certain he had every answer nailed down. Hours of preparation, talking points memorized. The director of the FBI preparing for fight. Then Ted Lieu did something devastatingly easy. He didn't give over a paper. He didn't pull him into a legal dispute. He simply clicked play. And what burst from that tape wasn't simply another oversight moment. It was a nasty, direct test to whether Kash Patel genuinely controls his own agency's most explosive inquiry.
You say that the FBI has Epstein's list. They're sitting on it. That doesn't seem like something you should do. You're protecting the world's foremost predator. That seems like an evil thing to do, regardless of who may be embarrassed in the release of that list. Why is the FBI protecting the greatest pederast, the largest scale pederast in human history?
Simple, because of who's on that list.
Patel felt he was ready, but Lieu's move showed something much more alarming. An FBI director who looked reluctant or unable to properly utilize the deadly power of the institution he controls. When challenged on subpoenaing the Epstein estate for concealed information the public has never seen, Patel didn't justify that power. He downplayed it. He said the FBI's hands were tied. Lieu shut him down swiftly, his voice crisp and unflinching. That's simply untrue. You are the FBI. You can subpoena that information, and you best do it. That single explosive interaction was no footnote. It was the first volley in a 5-minute nightmare that exposed plain, vast, troubling gaps in how extensively the FBI has researched the Epstein investigation. As director, Kash Patel holds ultimate accountability. Yet his replies immediately screamed reluctance and diversion. And that was just the warm-up. What Ted Lieu showed next, right from the safe Epstein himself unlocked, would shock you to your core. Stay right here. You do not want to miss this.
Elected. I was sitting talking to Epstein, and he said, "Wait a minute, I got to show you something." And then he went into his safe, and he came out with photographs. They were Polaroids, I think, and he kind of spread them out like playing cards, and it was Trump. I mean, I think there were a dozen of them, and it was Trump with girls of an uncertain age at Epstein's Palm Beach house, where all of the things that he would ultimately be accused of took place. And I remember very vividly 3 of them. There are 2 in which Trump is, the girls, topless girls, are sitting on Trump's lap. And then a 3rd in which he has a stain on the front of his pants. And the girls are kind of pointing at it, sort of bent over, laughing.
Sit with what you just heard, because it impacts everything that follows next. That was not a leaked FBI file. It was not sealed court testimony. That was Michael Wolff, the journalist who published Fire and Fury, detailing on video precisely what he believes Jeffrey Epstein personally retrieved from his own safe and scattered over the table like playing cards. By Wolff's own reckoning, he spent approximately 100 hours in recorded discussions with Epstein for multiple years. An extraordinary collection he has publicly stood with, including a 2024 release when Epstein named Donald Trump as his best buddy for a whole decade. Here's what makes this tough to dismiss. Each time, the most bombshell information in this case come from outside the FBI, never from within it. Journalism, the estate, private recordings, never the Bureau leading the effort. So when the director of the FBI stands under oath and gives a bald denial that any such information exists or was ever vigorously sought, the important question isn't whether Wolf's account is perfect proof. The fundamental issue is how the nation's top law enforcement leader can assert such perfect assurance when his own agency continues finding the facts last, not first. That perilous divide is precisely what Ted Lieu resorted to next, and the replies that followed were much more startling.
So, Director Patel, I'm going to ask you a very broad and general question. As you know, Donald Trump and Jeffrey Epstein were friends. There are, of course, photos showing Donald Trump together with Epstein, correct?
I don't have the entirety of the photographs, but I think they've been photographed in public together.
All right. Are there any photos showing Donald Trump with girls of an uncertain age?
No,
How do you know that?
because that information would have been brought to light by multiple administrations and FBI investigators over the course of the last 20 years.
Well, you know what? That's just not true, because no one knew about the creepy birthday message that Donald Trump wrote to Jeffrey Epstein until the Wall Street Journal disclosed it, and then all of a sudden, the Epstein estate provides it to Congress.
Well,
so certainly, you weren't there at the search. You don't know what Epstein may or may not have done with those photographs even prior to the search. Maybe someone has it. Maybe the Epstein estate has it.
You raise a great point.
Patel's whole argument depended on one arrogant claim. If anything important existed, 20 years of multi-administration investigations would have already uncovered it. That's the entire debate. One sentence. And Ted Lieu already had the example that breaks it, the birthday letter. For context, House Oversight Democrats released a card from Jeffrey Epstein's 50th birthday book bearing Donald Trump's name, containing a drawn silhouette and a suggestive imagined exchange between the two men, first reported by the Wall Street Journal and later handed to Congress not by the FBI, but by the Epstein estate itself. Trump has openly denied drafting it and has initiated legal action against the publication over the allegation. Whatever the validity of the letter, the sequencing isn't in doubt. It lay buried for years, and when it ultimately appeared, it was via outside reporting and an estate declaration, not proactive work by the Bureau. Patel now rules the FBI, not outside pressure. Once again, Lieu didn't need the letter to be legitimate to make his argument. He simply needed it to establish Patel's "it would have come out by now" rationale doesn't stand up. And Patel had delivered him that evidence himself weeks earlier in the same news cycle. That's why Patel's pullback counts so much. You raise a fantastic point, not a rebuttal, not a justification of the record, a surrender, live under oath, from the guy whose duty is to know what his own agency has and hasn't discovered. His core argument had just fallen in real time on live television. And instead of fighting it, he agreed. That's the pattern underpinning all of this. Not silence, but avoidance dressed up as agreement, admitting just enough to survive the inquiry without actually addressing it. Lieu wasn't done. He had one more thread to pull, the one piece of concrete proof that may settle this for good.
So I'm going to ask you, have you asked to talk to Michael Wolff?
You raise a great point. I haven't personally asked to talk to
Has the
Michael
FBI
Wolff,
asked?
but
you
the
to interview Michael
FBI,
Wolff?
I'll get back to you if the FBI specifically
So Michael Wolff
asked
has
ever.
about 100 hours of testimony of Jeffrey Epstein. Wouldn't it be good for the FBI to interview Michael Wolff?
I'm not saying they haven't, I just don't know.
Has FBI subpoenaed the tapes that Michael Wolff has conducted of Jeffrey Epstein?
I don't know.
100 hours. Let that figure sink in. 100 hours of taped discussions between Michael Wolff and Jeffrey Epstein, the greatest known private archive into Epstein's life that exists outside government control. Portions have already gone public and produced huge headlines. Yet on oath, the director of the FBI acknowledges he does not know if his own agency has ever subpoenaed those recordings or even contacted the journalists possessing them. Read that response again. This is not Patel safeguarding a current investigation for national security considerations. That would be usual. This is the director of the FBI publicly declaring he has no clue whether his organization made any attempt whatsoever to obtain the single most comprehensive recorded Epstein archive on the globe. Not, we reviewed it and found nothing. Not, it's ongoing. Just, I don't know. A grand jury subpoena for recordings previously known to exist, held by a publicly named American journalist, is among the lowest friction actions federal investigators may undertake. No secret warrants, no foreign governments. It merely involves choosing the content is worth exploring. 3 years after Epstein's death, under a director who had publicly demanded absolute openness on this issue, the response to Congress was still nobody checked. Either the agency neglected to pursue the most apparent source in the whole investigation, or its own director is too distant from the file to know. Both are damning. And that's the credibility issue Ted Lieu was ready to convert into one last question. That's literally not how it works.
That's literally not how it works.
I'm going to move on now and talk about Epstein's client list. You confirmed that it exists. Attorney General Pam Bondi confirmed earlier this year that it exists. I just want to ask you a simple question. Is Prince Andrew on Epstein's client list?
The material related to Prince Andrew has been made public.
Is Prince Andrew on the client list?
We have released the index of names
All right,
that were in Jeffrey Epstein's.
Is Donald Trump on Epstein's client list?
The index has been released, and the index will speak for
So I'm
itself.
just going to say, America, there's a huge red flag. The FBI director could not answer
Gentlemen.
whether Donald Trump was on Epstein's
Gentleman's time
client
has
list.
expired.
I
You're
yield
now
back.
recognized.
5555555555555555555. Notice what Lieu did there. He didn't inquire about the list in the abstract. He inquired about two particular names, back to back, right after Patel and Attorney General Pam Bondi had previously acknowledged separately on the record that a client list existed at all. That's the trap. You cannot declare there is a list and then refuse to reveal if a particular named person is on it without the denial itself being the answer. Patel's answer to both names was fundamentally identical. Refer to the index, not confirm nor deny. Point to a document and let it speak for itself, which, crucially, it can't do in a hearing room in real time, which is precisely why Lieu was asking a human, not a PDF. If the honest response had been no, declaring so costs the FBI nothing and terminates the inquiry. Patel didn't say it. Twice. And this wasn't isolated. Earlier the same session, Representative Daniel Goldman, a former federal prosecutor himself, addressed Patel directly. You are suppressing the Epstein papers. You are part of the cover-up. Later, the Republican-controlled committee voted 20-19 to block a Democratic motion from Representative Jamie Raskin to subpoena 4 major banks: J.P. Morgan Chase, Bank of New York Mellon, Bank of America, and Deutsche Bank over $1.5 billion in transactions those banks had themselves flagged as suspicious and connected to Epstein. Raskin presented old film of Patel before he became director, publicly requesting the materials be disclosed in full. Representative Pramila Jayapal dubbed it a huge cover-up. None of that happened in a vacuum. It occurred in the same room, the same day, around the same 3 questions Lieu kept coming back to. What does the FBI truly have? What has it really pursued? And why won't its director simply say so? Add it up. A journalist's on-the-record explanation of images the FBI director declared couldn't exist, followed by an admission that his own rationale for that assertion had previously been disproven weeks ago. 100 hours of interview tape the FBI hadn't acknowledged it even sought to collect, and a client list the director helps confirm exists, followed by a reluctance to reveal who's really on it. 3 diverse lines of inquiry, 3 replies that were theoretically responses without ever being answers. That's the part worth sitting with, because this was never simply 5 minutes of legislative entertainment. It was a stress test of whether the FBI under Kash Patel is genuinely capable of the one thing the public has sought for years on this case: true responsibility, not controlled propaganda. And by the time the gavel came down, the pattern was already determined. A congressman with genuine investigative expertise walked through the foundations of the case, one verifiable fact at a time. And time and over, Patel chose diversion over clarity, ambiguity over command, and cautious language over a clear response. Here's the bit that makes it land harder. This is the same guy who, before he commanded the FBI, spent years publicly demanding the Epstein files be disclosed in full. The video Raskin played the same afternoon. The guy formerly positioned as the outsider who'd ultimately hold the system responsible is now the one within it, providing the system's oldest answer, I don't know. I'll take your representation. The index will speak for itself. That paradox is the tale as much as any one encounter is, and that fits a trend that continues occurring over this whole case. The birthday letter didn't come from the FBI. It comes from the Wall Street Journal and the estate. Wolf's characterization of the safe isn't an FBI finding. It's a journalist's own archive, developed separately years before any of this evidence. Even the client list itself exists because Congress and the Attorney General validated it, not because the agency donated it. Every time anything substantial appears in this case, it comes from outside the FBI, not inside it. That's not a one-off. That's the trend Lieu's inquiries were meant to reveal. And that's why I don't know from the director has more weight than it would from virtually anybody else in that room. None of it needs conjecture to be detrimental. Nobody has to fabricate a smoking gun here. The real legislative record performs the job on its own. A director who can't ensure his agency examined its one apparent lead, a filmmaker who concedes his key point mid-sentence rather than fight it, a director who won't offer a clear yes or no concerning two names after verifying the list they'd purportedly be on exists. Those are the facts under oath on the permanent record. They don't vanish when the news cycle goes on. They'd be replayed, mentioned, and inquired about again the next time Patel is back in that chair. That's basically what this boils down to. Not one viral clip, but a recorded trend the nation now gets to assess for itself. An agency whose most crucial revelations keep coming from everywhere but itself. And a director whose default under pressure is a variation of I can't say, dressed up as protocol. Whether that's ineptitude, caution, or something people are right to be more cautious of, that's the issue this hearing leaves on the table. And it isn't going away. If you want to keep following where the Epstein Files investigation truly stands, grounded on what was stated under oath, not the version created for outrage, subscribe and let us know in the comments what you believe that pattern actually implies. We'll be watching this as it develops.